Today I wanted to talk about how constraints can help with creativity, and we're going to do that based on the example of the Playdate game console. So for those who don't know, the Playdate is this tiny, cute, handheld gaming console. You can see it here on the left side. It has a crank that you can take out, and you can use it to scroll through the UI, but you can also use it in games. It has an A and B button. It has this cross to select stuff and play games, and of course also like a menu button to get back to stuff. And I wanted to look into this, use this into showing how constraints can help with creativity, because this thing has a lot of constraints. Let's look at the specs together. So we have a really, really slow 168 megahertz Cortex M7 chip. That is really slow, so you can't expect to do anything crazy on here, but it is still fast enough to play like tiny video games or even emulate stuff from Game Boys and the likes. It also has only 60 megabytes of RAM, so that is pretty limited. It has a tiny display, and it is a 1-bit display, so it can only have two colors, white and black. And it has a little speaker inside of it, and also a little microphone. It also has wireless access via Wi-Fi, although as I showed in other videos, that is really, really hard to use because it's slow, it's not super reliable, so you can't do crazy stuff with it, but it's enough to submit some stuff or download some stuff from a website, download data from a website, not like big video files or something like that. It also has a 3-axis accelerometer, and as I said, the crank. Through its many, many tiny constraints, this tiny little cute thing will force you to make a lot of decisions, which will result in some really unique result. Even though it's so limited, you can do a lot of things with it, and others already have figured this out. For example, it has only 2 bits. What can you do with 2 colors? You can start to use dithering as a technique to get more details on screen. So you can use an image, or I have even seen videos. Some game is able to do videos on this tiny little thing. It's super cool. I think constraints like this can really help you, especially when you're just starting out, because it is easy to think something too big, too broad, and then never finish it. But by keeping it small, setting yourself constraints, it's easier to actually finish projects. So by using something like this, for example, you already have a big constraint that you cannot have the craziest graphics, you cannot use the craziest game engine that uses a lot of RAM or needs crazy graphics computing. But as I showed in another video, you can actually also do 3D stuff on it if you program correctly and use all of the resources available to you. I always found that this kind of restraints are helpful in creativity, because you have to think around stuff, not with stuff. And that is just a huge source of inspiration. It's also really cool to see what others are doing with this, what others are doing with these constraints, and where they land on with their projects. So in general, I would say it's more fun to play with constraints. It also makes it easier to finish projects. This applies to all kinds of projects. So I'm an app developer. I also make a lot of games, and there it's the same thing. I think it's fun to think about constraints there as well. For example, I'm currently working on a new app. I still haven't talked about it yet, but we try to set some constraints that we wanted to go with from the beginning. Out of idealistic reasons, we want to make the app a one-time purchase. That means we don't want to have super huge server costs. So we decided to have no server at all. That is like one constraint we are building with. We're like, we could use a server for this, but every time this question comes up, we just can say, no, we're not going to build a server. We have to figure out how to do this stuff on device. And the next constraint we set us, this should be local first. We want to be able to use the app completely offline, no matter what. So every time we have to ask a question like, oh, can we use a service for this? Can we use a server for this? The answer is no. We have to find a way around it to build something that can happen only on the device. Out of experience, I can say it's way easier to finish projects this way. I recently see a lot of people getting into vibe coding, and sometimes it can feel like they're drunk on power or something because they feel they have this new ability and everything is possible. While I think that is a great energy to have, that everything is possible, I also see a lot of them struggle finishing their projects. They have no constraints, and that leads them to finish no projects. For example, I can see a lot of people right now starting to build video games. Again, they don't set themselves constraints, so they think super big. They want to build real-time strategy games or some first-person game, which is like super hard, or they use a game mechanic that is really hard to balance, and it takes a lot of work to play test and refine, and they're most of the time not ready for it. So yeah, if you're building any of these, I know I don't want to discourage you from pursuing that. I just want to say that I think it's going to be really, really hard to finish your project, and I would advise you to set some constraints. Like, for example, only use this tiny game engine, only build something for a web browser, only build something for one platform, and also start with a very simple game mechanic instead of trying to build a whole Age of Empires or StarCraft real-time strategy game. That is really hard. And I want you to succeed and to finish your project. I want to see it. If you're working on anything, I'm super excited to see it. You can leave a comment about it. I just wanted to remind you that creative constraints are great. For my next project, for my next game, I want to build something only for the Playdate. It has constraints that I really like. It's tiny, it's fun. It has a 1-bit screen, only 2 colors. It has a tiny CPU, not a lot of RAM. You need to do low-level programming on it to get anything cool done. I think it's just inspiring and it sparks my creativity, and that's what I want to work with.